Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Computer Science Classes by Nikhil Srivastava, and in this video we will try to understand what is private inheritance, or when the access mode is private, what all happens. Okay, so let me open a notepad, and inside the notepad, so what I want to explain private inheritance. So suppose you have a class A and then you have a class B that is doing private inheritance from which class? It is doing private inheritance from which class? So here the access mode is what? The access mode is private, and we want to understand what is private inheritance in C++. So private inheritance, when you access the derived class using the private, when you derive using private inheritance, then all the public and all the protected members of the base class become the private members of the derived class. Okay, is it clear? All the public and all the protected members of the base class become the private members of the derived class. It is different from public inheritance. What we studied in public inheritance, the public member of the base class become public member of the derived class. The protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class. But in private inheritance, what happens? All the public and all the protected members of the base class become private members of the derived class. Okay, so here if you can see, so let us first of all try to understand what is the why do we exactly do private inheritance. So here I will not be doing public inheritance. What kind of inheritance I will be doing? I will be definitely doing private inheritance. Okay, so this is my permanent employee. Okay, this is my permanent employee. Let us first of all do public inheritance and understand the problem which can arise. Okay, I am doing public inheritance. Now suppose here you say suppose here you have also one method void display. Okay, there is one method, and cout suppose I say name equals suppose name, and then you write salary equal to say suppose salary. Okay, like this, and then I will give a new line marker also, of course, something like this. All right, now this is my permanent employee, and I want to say that my organization has very good HR policy. Normally when you work in organization, your HR organization sucks. It tries to suck the blood out of you, but all the policies and everything, in many cases it's like that. Many cases it may not be like that, but this company it's a very good company, and it has an organization policy. And what is the organization policy for any permanent employee? For any permanent employee, the salary cannot be less than 50,000. See, they are generously paying to their employees. So they say that for any permanent employee, we cannot pay less than 50,000. Okay. So now what I do, I create an object of the permanent employee. Suppose like this, I create an object of the permanent employee, and I say set the object is P1, and then I say P1 dot set the name. Suppose I say name is Nikhil, and then I say P1 dot set salary. Suppose I say P1 dot set salary. But for any permanent employee, the salary cannot be less than 50,000. But over here, suppose I say the salary to be 20,000. Okay, and then I say P1 dot display. So here, my dear friends, if you try to run it, it will run successfully. Why it will run successfully? You can just see the output. Okay, clean and build. And then I go to run this application. You see, name Nikhil and salary is 20,000. But for our permanent employee, the organization policy was that the salary cannot be less than 20,000. But here I am able to set it. Why? Because I am doing public inheritance. What kind of inheritance? Public inheritance. So if I am doing public inheritance, then the set salary is a public member of which class? It is a public member of employee class. Then it will become a public member of what class? It will become a public member of the derived class also. So one set salary is now a public member of the derived class. So if set salary is a public member of the derived class, then I will be able to access that set salary method from outside the class using the object of the class. But now I don't want to do it. So what I will do, I will not make this public inheritance. I will make this inheritance what kind of inheritance? I will make it a private inheritance. Okay, so now you can see it is right away it is showing some compile time errors. Why it is showing compile time errors? Because once you do private inheritance, all the public and all the protected members of the base class become the private members of the derived class. I repeat, all the public and protected members of the base class become private members of the derived class. So in this case, all these members, they were public member of which class? They were the public members of the employee class. Now they have become what? Now they have become protected sorry, these were the public members in the base class, and now they have become private members in the derived class. Okay, private members in the derived class. So here I write something like this: public. Suppose I create a method, set permanent employee salary. Okay, I will set the permanent employee salary through this integer sal. And now in this I can make a check. What check I can make? I can make this check. Suppose the argument that you supplied for setting the salary, if this is less than, if it is greater than 30, if it is less than 30,000, say suppose. So I said the organization policy is at 50,000. No permanent employee salary can be set for less than 50,000. So I can say something like this: the permanent employee cannot get salary less than what? 50,000. Okay, and then I will give a new line marker. Else what I will do? I will say what? Set salary, and then I will give the argument itself. So now you see I am able to access set salary from here. I am able to access set salary from this permanent class. Why? Because now set salary is a private members, and private members are only accessible in the permanent in the class in which they are, you know. So set salary is a private members of the permanent employee class. That means it is accessible from only from within the class. So here now if I say, now if I want to set the salary of any, you know, any permanent employee, then what can I say? I can say something like this: p1 dot set permanent employee salary. Now if I set the salary less than, you know, I set the salary 20,000, then what will be the output, you know? Of course, according to what I have written, the salary will not be set. The salary of the employee will not be set. Clean and build. Then once when I go and run this application, if I try to run this application, run. Okay, the permanent employee cannot get salary less than 50,000. Okay, it is something like this. Now, so this is very clear, है ना? So now you can observe. Now suppose you try to do something like this: p1 dot set the salary from outside. Suppose you try to do something like this. You will not be able to do it. Why you will not be able to do it? Can you tell me? You will not be able to do it because, you know, set salary was public members in the base class. Then you did private inheritance, and in the private, because of private inheritance, set salary became the private members of the permanent employee class. That is why you can never access a private member from outside the class. And now suppose you make, to make things more clear, you make these members protected. Okay, now when you make these members protected, then you will be able to access in, you know, they will be accessible in permanent employee class also. Suppose you say cout, suppose you make one method and void function function1, and inside this function you can write something like this: cout what? Suppose you say name. You will be able to do it. See, this is giving, I mean, if you run this application, if you just run this application, there will be no compile time errors, you know. That means, you know, everything is fine. If you just run this application, there will be no compile time errors. Just let me go and run this application. See, it is building and compiling successfully. There are no compile time errors. So over here I have created a function, and in this function I am trying to access name, and name is what? It is a protected members of employee class. So now it has become a private members of which class? It has become a private member of the permanent employee class. So now again, if I do something like this, I create an object of permanent employee, suppose permanent employee, and p1, and then I suppose p1 dot Name, will I able to do it? I'll not be able to do it because name is now, it is now a private members of permanent employee class, so it cannot be accessed from outside the class. So this is private inheritance. So in private inheritance, always remember that all the public and protected members of the base class become private members of which class? The derived class. Okay, thank you so much for watching my videos, and in the next video we will study about protected inheritance, and then we will also see some more, some interesting techniques in which you can resolve these if there are multiple inheritance hierarchies, then you can resolve them easily. We will study a technique also. Okay, thank you so much for watching my videos.